going to draw eyes today, and the first thing, well, one eye. First thing we're going to do is we're basically just going to draw basically a kite shape, a sideways kite shape on our paper here, just like this. Of course, one end is going to be a little bit longer than the other, just like a kite. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the top and the bottom of the eye off just slightly. This is where we're going to begin to shape the eye a bit. We're going to do a little backwards letter C right at the one end, just like that. We're going to cut the other end down a little bit. Basically we're cutting the bottom line, but we're going to leave the top one the same length. Now we're just going to curve our bottom line here to begin shaping out the eye. We're going to cut the other end off a little bit. Now we're going to start to curve the top line as well. So we're getting rid of those sort of harsh points. Give it some more curve. And you can see that an eye is already starting to form. Now we're going to draw sort of a 3/4 of the circle of the retina of the eye, or where the color is, just like that. Now we're going to draw on the pupil. And in addition to that, I'm also going to draw what I call a negative space, or a reflection. It's going to drop down into the pupil. That's just so I know where it is and so I don't color it in. Now I'm going to color the pupil in here. Not too dark at first, just dark enough for us to get an idea of where the pupil is. A little bit more definition. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here at the outside edge, and I'm just going to draw jagged lines back and forth from the inner edge to the outer edge of the eye, of the retina. That's what eyes do. They sort of jump back and forth like this. If you look at your eye, this is actually sort of how your eye looks. But don't color in that space. So I'm kind of avoiding it. You can go over top of it a little bit. Now we're going to darken the outer edge, give our the color of our eye a little bit more definition, a little bit more solidity. This is also going to round it out a bit. And we're going to do the same thing on the inside. We're just going to darken the bottom edge, the furthest edge away from where that reflection is going to be. Just a little bit darker. And then we'll darken the lines in the middle. Just to give it a little bit more depth. Don't worry about trying to be perfect, by the way. Like I said before, the human face is not perfect, so you can see we're starting to get a little bit more definition here. Now I'm going to darken in the edges a little bit, just where that dark line is, bring in some of the little bit of a darker sketch in. And I'll darken that little spot, the tear duct on the one side. I'm also going to give the bottom of the eye a little bit more definition. We're sort of defining the bottom lid, or the bottom, I don't know what they call that. I'll just call it a lid for now. If you look in a mirror, you can actually see that there's a small lid on the bottom, or a small shelf, I'll call it. And we'll darken the top here too, give that a bit more definition. Really, essentially, we're just trying to get rid of all those points, those jagged edges, trying to round them out a little bit more. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can always erase stuff. You don't necessarily have to. You can. Now we're going to draw the upper lid. I want you to bear in mind that the eye is round. It's like a ball, basically. So you're going to give a little bit of a curve towards the top of the eye. so that it looks a little bit more full and giving a bit more definition to the eyeball underneath the skin, because it doesn't just end with what we can see, ironically enough, considering we're drawing eyes. We'll sort of darken in those edges again. What I'm going to do here a little bit is I'm just going to bring some shadow down into the eye here, because the eyelid will cast a shadow on the inner part of the eye. And I'm going to add a bit more shadow at the top here, sort of like eyeshadow, but not really, just to darken the inner edge so that we can actually, again, give that a bit more depth. And then I'm going to sort of just do a faint positioning of where the bridge of the nose is going to be, just beside the eye. I'm not going to worry about that really right now, but just so you know where it is. I'll do the same thing with the bottom. Now it's starting to look more like an eye, isn't it? Now every eye needs lashes. Now don't worry about getting these perfect, because eyelashes are not perfect. In fact, they don't all curve the same way. So sometimes they curve in opposite directions, and they bunch up sometimes and look kind of erratic. That's okay. Just going to do a little bit down at the bottom. Maybe have one curve the other way, just like that. And then darken this edge a little bit more, give it a bit more definition. So it's a little bit stronger. Notice I'm drawing little itty bitty lines in from the edge of the outer edge of the eye. And then I'll darken in the middle a little bit more, bring in a couple other lines. Just like that. Now I'm really going to define the pupil. I'm going to darken it in as much as I can, get as black as I can get it, but I'm not going to go all the way to where that reflection is. Now, the tool, I guess you can call it, that I'm using right now is just a wrapped up piece of paper. It's rolled just like sort of like a funnel, but really, really thin. And then I taped it, basically, so it's just taped, but the end it's just paper. And I use that to smudge. Keeps my fingers clean. Don't worry about smudging too much. You just want to really give that inner eye a little bit more definition. And this will really work for that. I mean, the eye is soft, right? So most of the features on the human face, they're softer, so you don't want to have too many harsh lines or too many jagged lines. Again, it also depends on what kind of face you want to draw too. I'm going to do the same thing to the inner eye here. I'm going to just smudge it a little bit in a second here, so you can kind of see what I mean. About this shadow on the inside of the eye basically adds a bit more curve to it, so it actually looks like a ball instead of just a flat surface. And that's essentially what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get it to look like we're looking at an eyeball. And this is just a basic, fundamental way to draw them. It's nothing super duper or really advanced. There are more advanced ways of doing these things, but I like sticking with the basics. They seem to work pretty effectively for me. And there we go. We have an eyeball.